What's going on, trading card game players? Figs here with Figs Forum, bringing you guys my local formula series number 8. So I wanted to go ahead and showcase for you guys here Phantom Knight Horus Adventure. Yes, we finally got the Horus cards from Age of Overlord, and I'm super excited. I've been having a blast playing the deck. It's very, very fun. The deck can be very, very competitive as well. I know a lot of people have been actually playing it on Dueling Book, so it has been coming up a lot online. And again, it's just a very great way of being able to play Phantom Knights. Phantom Knight definitely does utilize the Horus package very, very well. The resource of being able to dump a card, banish, search another card, or being able to just have your names in the graveyard and allowing them to be able to utilize each other and being able to set up a board is very, very strong. So I definitely do think that Horus has the best advantage when playing with Phantom Knights, as well as the adventure package. Just being able to use M-SETI and sending the Water Enchantress to go ahead and get you set up with your adventure package is actually a lot of value considering. So yeah, I definitely wanted to go ahead and showcase for you guys what I've been brewing and what I've been testing here for the deck. I've been having a lot of fun playing it. Again, it's very, very strong, very, very competitive. I do see it being at least a 1.5. In the right hands, it can definitely be better than a 1.5, especially someone who has been on the deck for a very long time or someone who takes the time to definitely learn the ins and outs of the deck. They will definitely be heavily rewarded. And I definitely do think that finding the right build is actually very important because there are a lot of cards that we can utilize for being able to take advantage of the Horus package and how it works. But you also want to make sure that you do have some non-engine cards that are able to be very, very good in the current format. It is kind of tough because I feel like there are a lot of actually good non-engine cards currently that can be utilized in this format. But, unfortunately, a lot of decks are very, very strong right now. The format is very wide open. So it is hard being able to select a certain card that will pretty much, put you in a position to really be able to outpace all of the current decks in the format. So again, with a wide open format like this, it definitely does allow us to be very, very strong because of course there is no way to really pinpoint, how a deck like Phantom Knight operates. Of course, Shifter is a very easy card to use, but of course, you're always putting your opponent on gotta have it. Which it feels great because of course if they don't see it, you're playing and you're going off pretty much uninterrupted. But yeah, otherwise I wanted to go ahead and showcase for you guys what I've been playing for it. And again, this is what the build that I have currently. This is honestly the build that I would currently play competitively. Again, there could be changes. There are a couple cards that I'll mention, in the deck profile that I feel like could be changed for other cards. But otherwise, I will explain the ones that I feel like are a lot more detrimental or very important for the build. They do allow you to be able to utilize your resources to the best of your ability. So let's go ahead and get to my formula or my take on the deck. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get into the 42 card main board. We'll go ahead and get started with the Phantom Knight cards. So you've got 3 copies of Torn Scale, 3 copies of Silent Boots, 2 copies of Cloak, 1 Ragged Gloves, 2 Fog Blade, 1 Shade, and 1 Wing. So we've pretty much cut down the deck. Ideally, I am a big fan of playing 3 Fog Blade because, of course, Bardiche is a great resource to utilize. I mean, he's basically a +2. So playing more copies of a Phantom Knight card allows you to be able to have on the following turn the ability to be able to use this effect again. You generally can do that, but unfortunately, if you do open up any one of these, then your next turn, you're not able to activate Bardiche's effect because you are pretty much going to go through 3 of these cards in one turn, or at least in your opening, if not for the follow-up. So you want to make sure that you are able to utilize what you need to in order to be able to actually be able to avoid, having this kind of issue. But yeah, I mean, essentially, this is just the way it is. I think this is the best way to be able to utilize the package. No Stain Greaves. I did want it for Dweller, and I do think it might find its place back in depending on how graveyard dependent the format is. Horus does play through Dweller, so that is a very big reason why I decided to opt from actually utilizing Dweller at the very moment, because of the fact that, again, you're pretty much using Dweller to just pick apart 2 decks right now, which is Unchained and Tier. And if they see the out to it, then they see the out. If they don't, then that doesn't mean they're not able to not play at all. It just means that you're stunting them for a turn, if not 2. And again, I mean, this deck can OTK, so it's not necessarily a big issue. But the one problem with Stained Greaves as well is that he is a name that doesn't activate Engrave, singularly by himself. Because the issue is you do have to have a Phantom Knight name in hand in order to really utilize his ability. He is a name that does work obviously with Wings and Fogblade, but unless you have a Phantom Knight name in hand, he does not work by himself, which is a primary problem. That has made me consider actually putting Cloak up to 2, or I'm sorry, to 3, just because of the fact that, from 2 to 3, You are getting the ability to be able to pitch him and utilize an effect. Torn Scale is actually the only one that you're not able to do that with, where you're able to see him in your opening and pitch him. You do have to find another name. So I considered actually going from a 2 to 3, just so that way we have as many names as possible that are being able to allow us to search. Even the possibility of putting gloves to 2, just because of the fact that he can dump a trap. But again, we mostly want cards to hand. So being able to send a Phantom Knight name, search a card, allows us to be able to continue to utilize Sarcophagus and continue to send cards. Also allows us to be able to have the cards that we need engraved and set up what we need to when we do Zombie Vampire. So, but for right now, I do think that this is actually the best count for how we want to play the deck. I don't think it needs to be changed at the current moment. 3 Water Enchantress, so the Adventure Engine, 1 Griffin, 3 Right, 1 Faithful, and 1 Dracoback. So in testing, I've actually been opening up Right quite often. Even at my locals with playing the deck, for some reason this card is glued in my hand. I've actually considered cutting it down to 2 just because of the fact that I do see it as often. Water Enchantress is absolutely amazing. Being able to see this work Sarcophagus is a huge plus because you're able to dump it, search Right, and then Right gets you just 2 additional cards that allow you to be able to dump them. You can get Draco back off of Faithful, dump this for King Sarcophagus, activate the effect to get it equipped to the token. So yeah, it's very, very strong. And I do think this is the best package in Phantom Knights to utilize. I'm not a fan of Ken and Jen, but that's for another time. Then we'll get into the Horus cards. So we've got 3 King Sarcophagus, 3 Mseti, 1 Happy, and 1 of the Duomontif. So we're just gonna call it Guidance and Blessing because these names are absolutely crazy, especially this one. But yeah, I definitely think this is the best total. Of course, these cards are mandatory for being able to play the deck. And then, of course, 1 of each name. I considered playing the 4th. I'm not sure if I want to play it as a 1 of. It is a brick kind of because, of course, having them in hand doesn't really do you much good unless you have King Sarcophagus and Mseti. But being able to have 4 names means that you can actually make number 90 first, and then you can actually make the vampire dragon, or the zombie vampire. So yeah, I definitely think this is the best way to play it. I will consider putting in the 4th, but I think this is perfectly fine at the moment. Then we'll go ahead and get into non-engine cards. So we're playing 3 Kashtira Fenrir. I think Fenrir is absolutely nuts in this engine just because of the fact that he does replace himself to hand. So basically you summon Fenrir, search Fenrir, then you can pitch the other copy of Fenrir from your hand. For King Sarcophagus, it puts a guy on board that allows you to be able to end on as a interruption during your opponent's turn. Or it's even a board breaker. So being able to summon this, get the search. If your opponent does not take him off the board, then you have an additional card to pitch for King Sarcophagus, playing into a board even then. But also, again, he's a great board breaker. So I think Fenrir warrants a spot in this deck 100%. Great card, especially for what we're trying to do with the deck. I'm playing 3 Droll. I know a lot of people like to play the Ash Blossom with the 3 Imperm. I'm not a fan of that, unfortunately. I play Droplets, so that's my way of being able to play outside of Imperm. And then I think Droll is actually very, very good. With Vanquished Soul's boost from the new cards from Age of Overlord, the new card, the monster actually puts that deck under Droll even harder. And every other deck I feel like is still very impactful against because of non-engine cards. Pot of Prosperity is an insane card. Thrust is an insane card. So being able to have the Droll and Lockbird, even going first, is really nice because you set up your board. And if your opponent begins to play, you're able to draw and lock them. They're not able to actually use Thrust to add to hand. So you're able to pretty much be able to stunt them from playing the game. And then you're also stopping them from being able to find Thrust targets that'll basically break your board. And then again, the same thing goes for going second. I mean, you're not looking to really stop your opponent from playing the game. You're trying to stunt them from being able to accomplish their full combo. So obviously every deck has the ability to pretty much process or to build a board that obviously they want to end on. And every deck does it differently, and every deck may not do the exact same line, but every deck does pretty much play into Droll pretty heavily because of non-engine cards. So I think Droll is actually the best card right now to play in the main board. I know a lot of people consider taking it out. I think it's very good against tier, especially the Shadal and the Destiny Hero package decks. They do lose the Droll pretty heavily, as well as Unchained when they're playing the Thrust and Pots. Also, again, Vanquish Soul, they got a huge boost. So this hurts Vanquish Soul, this hurts Flu. This hurts pretty much every deck in the format. So I do think it warrants a spot in the main deck. Again, Ash for me is very low impact. I feel like in order for you to utilize Ash, you have to have Imperm or something else in order to truly stop your opponent from playing the game. Also, when you Ash your opponent, they just end up talenting you and looking at your hand. at least Droll will stop them for the turn. Ash doesn't necessarily stop them from the turn. They could just challenge draw too, and then just draw into cards that they need to keep playing. So I'd much rather be able to just stop my opponent. If they want to look at my hand to take a card, that's perfectly fine. Hopefully my hand isn't bad to the point where if they take one card, I can't play anyways. But the Droll pretty much resolved, and it stops them from being able to do whatever they want to do anyways. The other spells in the deck, non-engine, again, 3 droplet, 1 Rhoda, 1 Call by, 1 Foolish. So the 3 droplet obviously are in here because, Arise Heart's gone, our graveyard's back to full access. And this deck fully utilizes the graveyard to the best of its abilities. So I definitely do know the droplet is just absolutely nuts. Being able to play that again, it's been amazing. You have traps in the deck, which is actually pretty huge because you're able to pretty much stop your opponent from being able to respond with traps as well. Spells, monsters, whatever you pretty much need to stop, you're pretty much going to prevent your opponent from being able to do things. Really great because right now SP Knight is also running around and Droplet just, wrecks SP Knight. Then, of course, we've got Rhoda for our PK engine, Call By, and the Foolish. Call By was like a last minute addition. I guess you don't really have to play it because you don't really care too much about hand traps at the moment. But I do care about Shifter. I just want to be able to not have to worry about it. So I don't want to have to side the one slot. I figure main decking it is fine because I'm not playing any hand traps other than Droll. So if my opponent does Ash me, I pretty much have it out to Ash. Plus, playing into a board, every deck pretty much has cards that they utilize in the grave. Everything from Tier, to Unchained, again, everything pretty much has it. Even Vanquished Soul, if they only have one name in grave, you stop them from pretty much being able to add it to hand during your turn. So this does come in handy, but of course, again, it can be replaced. I don't think it's like the absolutely must have. I think it's just a very good option. And again, it could be replaced, Harpies, something else, if you find something better. Again, same thing with the Droll. I think that's more of just a personal choice. But 42 cards in the main, definitely very solid in my opinion. Again, it's been testing for me very, very well. My only thing is, again, for some reason, the right package is kind of glued always to my hand, but I definitely do enjoy the deck in with the 42 cards in the main. So, well, let's get into the extra deck. So we've got our 1 Cherubini, of course, never goes, always stays. Our 1 IP Masquerena, SP Little Knight, Dark Charmer, and Rusty. So these are actually the only Link monsters that we are currently playing at the moment. I'm trying to utilize the better XYZs for the deck at the moment, and I feel like I wanted to make sure that I had all of my options for being able to go into Bardiche. So the Dark Charmer climbing into Bardiche. We have SP Knight that pretty much can be played off a Dark Charmer or anything else. IP Masquerena into SP, and then Cherubini primarily into Rusty and setting up our adventure line. So these Link monsters are pretty mandatory. I've considered playing 2 SP Knight, but I'm not there yet to the point where I think that I need to. I think at some point, if I do, of course, we play the Link Spider for the vanillas that we do have in the deck. And then, of course, we play the second SP Knight. So for rank 3s, we're playing the 2 Breaksword, 1 Leviair. Leviair, I feel like, is actually the flex spot. I don't make this as often as I'd like to. It's just a great way of being able to recycle names from the Banish and make SP Knight. But Breaksword pretty much already does that. I mean, most of the time during your opponent's turn, you have IP Masquerena, you're bringing this back for a pop, and then you just chain IP to make this. So pretty much you're always finding your way into it, but I do think this is probably the flex spot. Because originally this was Dweller, and then I decided to play Leviair since I took out Staingrave. So I think this can probably be replaced with something. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but we'll definitely get there. I kind of miss access code, so maybe access code, but we'll see. Then we've got our Evil Swarm Nightmare, our Raiders Knight, and our Ark Rebellion. So Nightmare is just additional option for us to end on because of the fact that we have floating names with the one floating name with King Sarcophagus and the Horus engine. You're able to pretty much have the extra body. So you make IP Masquerena with the floater and the trap monster Shade, and then you pretty much use the 2 darks that you bring back with Breaksword as level 4s and make Evil Swarm Nightmare. So you have access to Evil Swarm Nightmare as well as IP Masquerena. So it gives you more interruptions and more options to be able to play through your opponent's board, or stop them from making a board or playing into your board. And then Raiders Knight, Ark Rebellion. I think I've won just about almost every game at locals with Raiders Knight, Ark Rebellion, because you're just sitting here pumping out a bunch of dudes with Horus, and they're having to answer those, and then they have to answer your adventure package because it's such a good board breaking like package. So then what you do is you pretty much just save 2 level 3s, 2 names, and then you just Breaksword into Raiders Knight into Ark Rebellion, and OTK them. So yeah, this is honestly insane, especially with Droplet. Droplet says original attack. So again, this is original attack. So you're pretty much just killing your opponent every time with this card. And Again, I didn't have it in here originally, and I just couldn't not drop it, and I still play it so often, and it wins me so many games. It's so good. And then we'll get into our rank 8s. So we play the number 90 and the zombie vampire. So best rank 8s in my opinion. You can play Harbinger, but I think these are better because, of course, if you play the additional name, you could pretty much summon this, then summon this, and start playing the game, which I think I might actually start doing, but we'll definitely see how it tests. And yeah, these are the best two aside from Harbinger. And then we have the Zeus and we have the wannabe Zeus. So we are playing these. This is a mid-range deck, so we wanted to take advantage of Typhon. It's been an amazing card, honestly. It actually performs very, very well. You put yourself in a position where you're always pretty much just like dealing with your opponent's stuff. I mean, you clear as much as you can, and if you can't clear everything, you leave the card that you know you can bounce back willingly that won't go back to hand like an extra deck monster. So you clear everything else, then at the end of it, you just make this, bounce it, and just call it a day. And that's it. You pass your turn. So I mean, this card it's been performing that well for me. And Zeus obviously is Zeus, so I definitely think it's worth having both. Also, the great thing about the Typhon is that if you're on just literally one guy, and your opponent interrupts you and leaves you with just one singular body, I mean, he's a 2900 that bounces a card, so ideally he's probably going to clear two guys in most situations. And then, in some matchups, it actually does matter. Like against Brandon and Manadium, he actually puts in a lot of work because he stops your opponent from activating effects. So you can just like summon this while they have a Mirror Jade and then just bounce their Mirror Jade back. Amazing. Like I said, very nice. Definitely works really well. I do enjoy it a lot. So that's it for the extra deck. And we'll go into the side because I definitely think the side is very important, especially for this deck to understand why and what we're playing. So 3 DD Crow. Again, I like the Bishios, but I feel like this is just much better. There's so many decks running around that do utilize the Grave and Runic bag. This is just as good as being able to have even for that matchup. You've got Runic, you've got Chimera, you've got Unchained, you've got Tyr. You've got so many decks that just utilize the graveyard. Again, even Vanquish Soul, you can knock cards out of their grave. But this puts in a lot of work. Hits purely, again, hits everything. 3 Cosmic, because you don't want to get caught up by Floodgates. I feel like Floodgates are actually kind of back. A lot of people are playing There Can Only Be One. This deck doesn't really get hurt by it because of the Horus package as well as the Adventure. But I think it's nice being able to have the option of being able to deal with back row. Again, even in the mirror, or you're playing against a deck that is Horus, you want to be able to get rid of their King Sarcophagus. It's too much value. Same thing with the Harpies. It sits in the same place. Lab is still a deck. You want to make sure you have outs to those decks like that. 2 Dark Ruler in here. So I have 2 Dark Ruler in here for the decks that pretty much create a board that you just have a hard time dealing with. I know Droplet can, obviously be really, really good, but sometimes Droplet does require you to have to send too many cards. And if you're in a situation where you open up Droplet and King Sarcophagus, you have to make the choice of, obviously using Droplet and then trying to get as much out of King Sarcophagus as you can. So I feel like Dark Ruler kind of mitigates that. Against the matchups where your opponent's going to go absolutely wide, you want to be able to have this in as an option because then you pretty much shut off their board and just play, and then you out everything, or you can Zeus them. So it's nice to have the option to be able to stun your opponent's board and deal with things. I'm doing 3 anti-spell. I think this card's absolutely insane, this format. Again, it's just being able to stop your opponent from activating spells. There's so many power spells right now in this game that I feel like anti-spell just puts in a lot of work. Some decks, it won't stop them from playing, but being able to stop your opponent from playing their field cards to search, being able to play their spell cards from searching a monster. I mean, Vanquish Soul has Stake. Unchained has their spell that searches a guy. Like every deck pretty much has a good spell card that lets them start playing the game, even Tears. So being able to have this pretty much just says, okay, you can't do that. Even against like Flu, they have Map. Like every deck just has a really good power spell that pretty much starts them and allows them to play the game. Also having this, again, says no thrust. It stops them from being able to find their board breaker. They have to inherently open the evenly or something like that. So yeah, I definitely really, really think that this card's actually pretty much overperformed for me. And then 3 evenly match. So I feel like every deck right now pretty much crumbles the evenly match. And if the deck doesn't crumble the evenly match, you take away pretty much just a lot of their interruption. I mean, the idea behind evenly match is that even against decks like Unchained, yes, they can find a way to play around the evenly match, but it's the idea that you're trading one card for multiple of their interruptions, where in most situations you would have to trade card for card. This just trades one for multiple, and I think that's very important, and I'm fine with trading my battle phase for that because this is Phantom Knights. You are a controlled mid-range deck, so you don't mind being able to build a board and break a board at the same time. So evenly taking away a majority of your opponent's interruptions and then putting them on just, having whatever they have left is pretty crucial. I mean, this card's actually absolutely nuts against Rescue Ace as well, especially if they're not able to put Baron and Savage on board. You pretty much just, wipe all their resources away. And again, it's one of those cards that it's not in this format, it's not meant to completely blow your opponent out and win the game off of that. It's the idea that you're trading one card for multiple interruptions if they don't have omnis. So it allows you to be able to just, okay, trade this for 3 or 4 cards and then start playing and know, okay, well, I only have to play around this, this, and that because it's all you have left. So that's pretty much the idea. I mean, a lot of cards, I mean, Dark Ruler can pretty much stun the board. But again, there are cards that allow you to be able to do, to play around that and to continue to keep playing. And I feel like Evenly just takes those resources away completely and, puts you in a position where you don't even have to worry about them. So yeah, that's it for the main extra inside. So I wanted to go ahead and give you guys, that formula series number 8. They go ahead and showcase for you guys Phantom Knight Horus Adventure. This is my formula, my take. Definitely jump in the comment section below and let me know what you guys think, what changes you would make, any additions, subtractions, whatever you guys would do or whatever you guys are playing currently right now for Phantom Knights. I definitely think this is the best variant. Again, I've tried everything, in terms of what good non-engine card you could possibly play. I had Nim in the main board because I do like Nib a lot. Obviously, the token allows you to be able to OTK your opponent through the Rebellion. So that's actually always a huge plus. And then, of course, being able to just have access to, cards that, again, like Evenly, that stun your opponent, take away a lot of the resources. Doesn't necessarily take them out of the game completely, but it does stop them from being able to do exactly what they wanted to do in that instance, puts them on having to deviate to a different plan, leaves a token on board, and I always put it in attack, and then you just Arc Rebellion kill them. Because, again, the Nib token gains original attack, Rebellion gains original attack. So that's important to note for those who do, want to consider Nib. I do think it is a valuable option. Because again, you're putting your opponent on only having so many resources going into your turn, less cards to play through, and then of course you just OTK them through the token. So that was one card I was trying for a little while. And again, I'm not a fan of Imperm Ash because you do need to see them together in order to really utilize, their strengths because they are not a high impact card. I think Droll is the best high impact card, and Droplet and Fenrir are some of the best board breakers along with the adventure package. So you should have really no issues being able to play into a board. But yeah, definitely go ahead and give it a try. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, like, subscribe, jump in the comment section, and we'll go over your guys' formula and see what you guys got going on.